Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Leo. Good to see you, buddy. I feel like it's been ages. How is this possible?
Oh my God. 2 weeks without you is too long, isn't it? It's far too long. Well, look, we missed you in Sofia, Sarah. You'd have had a riot. You'd have enjoyed yourself massively.
How was it?
Amazing. Great energy, like 280 property managers from all over Europe. Well, all over the eastern part of Europe and then from slightly further afield. It was amazing. Like, it was absolutely brilliant. Like, super cool. I think it's just great when you get a conference in a part of the world that hasn't had one before, because there's so much enthusiasm amongst people for the industry, and a lot of them have been educating themselves or watching webinars in different parts of the world. So to have like it dedicated to their region, I think created that wonderful energy. And you also had that, you'll remember this yourself from like early days SDR post COVID, when people turn up to conferences not really knowing who else is in the industry and who else is doing what they're doing. So there's people going, oh yeah, we've managed 50 and this is how we do it. And they're meeting people they never met before. They're engaging with tech products they've never thought about before. They're debating key topics like regulation and over tourism, and it's phenomenal. And we had a blast. We interviewed the mayor as well, and he's like super open to visitors coming to Sofia and wants to kind of spread the word that it's open for business from a tech standpoint and also from a tourism standpoint. So yeah, like good vibes, really good vibes.
That's amazing. Finally, some good news in this space. I feel like so often we just talk about all the negatives, like all the negative regulation and draconian ways. So it's nice to be in a place where the industry and what we do is not only welcome, but also like has the support of local authorities. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and I agree, and I wonder, because the industry's matured, the learnings from Western Europe and the UK and parts of America, where we're now in a bit of a bad spot with regulation, should help the Eastern area, where if it's growing in popularity and tourists are coming in, they can build it from the start in a way that they want to, with the buy-in from policymakers. I mean, to have the mayor at your short-term rental conference, I mean, London, Paris, Madrid, they would only dream of getting a political figure like that to actually come on stage and speak positively about the industry. It's a challenge to get any politician to want to come. We can normally get a tourism minister in the UK, but you know, if anyone from housing or anyone from local government is really, really hard because it's such a political football. So yeah, it was honestly cool. But we missed you. We'll convince you, I'm sure, to come with us next time. But you've been busy, haven't you? Finishing this wonderful apartment.
I have been busy. Yeah, I'm so excited. The photographers came Wednesday and yesterday, and so I'm like really, really excited. It looks absolutely incredible. Like, even I used some of my contacts to kind of find the architect and the designer, and she's a friend of James, and she did such an amazing job. Like, honestly, my jaw dropped when I went in, and I knew it was going to look incredible because I had seen it like without the furnishings and nearly finished. And I had seen other projects that she'd done and was equally impressed. But it took me probably 30 minutes to pick my jaw off the floor when I saw it. It looked so good, so good. So I'm, hopefully it'll be on the market in the next week or so. And I've been over there the past couple of days, just like randomly as I have time, like testing everything, because there's always things that don't work, right? Like the, classic contractors. So there's like, I don't know, you open the fridge and the top bit of the fridge opens great, but it's like an integrated fridge. So when you open the freezer bit at the bottom, it opens also the fridge top. And you're like, oh gosh, guys. So there's just like little tweaks.
Snagging.
Yeah,
right?
I tried hot water and it turns on. They didn't turn the boiler on. Great, thanks, guys. So just little things like that. Just trying to work out some of the kinks and then hopefully get on the market. I'm really, really excited.
I love it. So we'll put the link to the Airbnb listing in the show notes, surely, and so people can see your Barcelona apartment palace that you've created. Very, very exciting, Sarah. I love it. Look, let's get into it. We've got a lot to discuss today. Lots of news, and obviously we've got to, because we haven't seen each other for 2 weeks, we could just spend 30 minutes catching up. So we have to resist that temptation. I'm going to start by saying I listened to GMH Outdoors last week for the first time. The Outdoor Crew launched, and it was fantastic. It was really, really good. So if anyone's not listened to it yet, check it out. And the highlight for me was them focusing on the fact that Fire Festival 2.0 is being talked about. Now, let's not go back into it. I don't want to repeat content that the Outdoor Crew nailed this. But man, I'm excited. And Sarah, I think of the two of us, you're the more likely candidate for Fire Festival. Like, isn't this cool?
It's amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let's hope this one actually has all the things that were promised. What a disaster. I think that was one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite documentaries ever. Just the faces of pure disappointment of all of the attendees who had just paid all this money. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I probably, luckily, I don't think I would be roped into that because I've never been to a first time festival. I don't think. I've only ever been to ones that are a little bit more established. So not at risk there. Plus, I think I'm pretty sure Mauro would keep me out of that. He's very conscientious on all these things and all the details. I'm sure he'd be like, "We're never going to a festival that's brand new."
Yeah. I can't see Mauro. I can't see Mauro frivolously wasting the money on something like that. No, I don't see it. I don't see it. Well, good job. You got him around then. So look, basically, guys, have a listen to GMH Outdoors weekly on a Thursday. Really, really cool show. Great presenters. Yeah, it's great to have them in the family. Let's get going. So my short-term rental hospitality highlight of the week is a slight adjacent business directly to STR, which is Mews PMS. But I think there's good reason why I'm mentioning them this week. So Mews have raised $75 million to aid their expansion in the US, as well as Germany, Austria, Switzerland region. Mews, headquartered in Amsterdam, have a big base of clients across, certainly in the UK, certainly parts of Western Europe. So this move is, again, not out of character for them because if you read the hospitality news, they have raised money a couple of times in the last year or so. And it's usually been used for acquisitions and improving features, investing in AI, things of that nature. So this time it's significant because we have it on pretty good authority that it's going to be to help strengthen as well their short-term rental part of the business. So one for us to watch in this sector. Mews generally do things right. They have a really good customer satisfaction. They get really good customer satisfaction scores. I often speak to hosts in our space who are using them or toying with using them. And they certainly know how to build a great product, and they're smart business people. So in terms of the acquisition side, I think that's interesting because what you might find is they decide there's a specific feature type business in the SDR space that they don't have enough experience of, so they might just go out and buy it. Or, dare I say it, don't think this will happen, but I'm putting it out there as something to watch. Could there be an acquisition of a short-term rental PMS? Perhaps one that's got a smaller footprint, but is doing well in America and potentially ready for an exit. So I just think that's one to watch. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. I love that there's so much investment in this space right now. It gets me really excited. And I think also whenever I see similar types of investment in the hotel sphere, and I see traditional kind of hotel softwares and hotel service companies going into short-term rentals, I think it does a lot to legitimize what we're doing. I think it definitely supports the fact that this is becoming much more professional. I also think they may have to, it is a different animal, right? So I think you're probably right on them potentially having to acquire a PMS that's already operating in the space, that's more geared towards vacation rentals. But I think it's definitely one to watch. And with that money, they could certainly acquire, somebody. And if they do things right, then could be some interesting competition in line for Hostaway and Guesty. So.
Yeah, I felt the same about the Hostaway and Guesty point, right? It's a big challenger brand coming in because they have that purchasing power when it comes to acquiring features. Again, what I think we'll see is the features. I think we'll see some sort of short-term rental specific add-on that they don't quite have, and they don't think they'll have enough time to build it. Therefore, let's buy it. But I would love it if there was some move within the PM. That would really ruffle people's feathers, right? If they acquired one of the successful but smaller US or European PMSs to try and really just come into the space harder. But yeah, it shows the gap again between hotels and short-term rentals closing in terms of the models that people use to acquire guests and service those properties. And that can only help our space. We're going to go into this later, I'm sure, when we dig into the Airbnb report, is this idea of the professionalization of the short-term rental space. And hoteliers and resorts also dipping their toe further into it. You got Marriott dipping their toe further into it. So there's definitely a coming together. And what that means is for consumers that often the quality bar, people expect a short-term rental to be as stocked and serviced as a hotel. So it stands to reason that, why not have a sort of a business that's really cut its teeth in the hotel space, doing more in the short-term rental space in terms of helping property managers run their business. Slight sort of wrinkle for me, though, is they are calling it alternative accommodation still. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Makes it sound very avant-garde, niche, doesn't it?
I saw that. It does. Also, it just makes us seem, I don't know, like we're not real businesses. I don't know. Yeah. It's the alternative accommodation still kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like, well, no, it's actually, it's not an alternative accommodation. It's just accommodation now, guys. It's been going. Yeah. This has been going on for a while. It's not a new concept.
I'm going to say it. I think there was short-term rentals before there was hotels. I think that's true. So,
absolutely.
Look at us getting defensive. Let's stop that. Okay, Sarah, give me your highlights, buddy.
Yeah, my highlight is Vacasa, right? They're still kind of flirting with these two different offers out there. So they made an SEC filing the other day to their shareholders, which was going into the information on each of the deals. Davidson Kempner was looking like potentially it was gaining some clout among some of the shareholders because at first glance it seems to be a higher offer. But this report kind of lays out some doubts as to whether or not this is truly a superior offer. There were flagged some major concerns potentially with the bid. One of them was, looking into some dwindling cash flows from Vacasa. So like they may not be able to wait for Davidson Kempner to get everything together. Vacasa did turn over all of the additional documentation to Davidson Kempner. So they're kind of in a holding pattern right now. But there definitely is an anticipation of some pretty significant both employee as well as property and homeowner turnover. One of the main concerning components of the Davidson Kempner deal is that they are requiring Vacasa to have 20,000 properties under management on the day of signing. Right now, that's not really a concern. So, Vacasa kind of currently active listings, which they have been dwindling. So if this trend continues, but currently active listings as of the month of February, they're at just over 31,000 listings currently. So right now they would meet that requirement. But if we look at, how that supply has changed, let's say over even, the last couple of years, they're down quite significantly. They're down nearly 8,000 or 9,000 listings from almost a year ago. So for sure, it's something to watch. If that trend continues, then that could blow up the whole deal. And the other interesting thing about the Davidson Kempner deal is that it has now been released as well that a lot of the investors in this deal are not actually putting any money in, and that includes Casago. So they are really just rolling over their existing shares into the new entity. And so it could mean much less in terms of cash flow for Vacasa as opposed to a Casago full-on takeover. So there's so many things up in the air. I'm really keen to see kind of how it all shakes out. But I thought it was a really interesting one because a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of leaning towards the fact that I thought maybe the shareholders were going to vote for the Davidson Kempner deal just because it was higher. And so why wouldn't you? But I don't know, this filing released some really interesting questions. What do you think, Leo?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And again, our US crew are talking about this, obviously, and are much closer to this deal than we are. But I think you're right. I think that my sense is that they're almost doing this to show that perhaps the deal isn't as good as it looks on the surface, right? Which it isn't. Like, don't get blinded by the higher strike price, right? So that's definitely my impression. And I feel like this just right now is too close to call. It really is too close to call. And what I love about it is like what you said about Mews is it's so interesting to watch the industry kind of like on fire in terms of people wanting to purchase businesses and get things going. You know, we've had our European version of it with Home to Go and Into Home. You know, that deal going through. Like Vacasa would just be like such a. I mean, it's one of the most interesting companies in our space because of the journey it's been on. So I think it's interesting because this may spark other deals. And I think probably my sense is still that like the Vacasa partnership will be the one that prevails, but definitely too close to call and exciting to keep watching it.
Yeah, I think so too. And like when I was reading this filing, it was really interesting to me because it almost sort of sounded like somebody on the inside wanted Casago to move forward rather than Davidson Kempner. It was almost like we know that this looks shiny, but be careful. So I thought that was really interesting. And I think, maybe if this sways the shareholders, then Casago's got it, I think.
I think
really
interesting. You're right.
It kind of in that same vein, and as we're sort of on potentially, businesses that are hurting for money in some ways, Expedia made a massive round of layoffs this week. So that's going to be our low light of the week. Let's call it pretty significant. They laid off about 1,500 employees. And that their total workforce right now was like 16,500. So it's a pretty decent chunk of their workforce. It's kind of tracking in line with something similar that we saw from Booking.com as well earlier in the year. And then, of course, after the layoffs, as you do, you show additional savings to the business. In the case of Booking.com, they were aiming for $450 million in savings, and part of that was going to be through job cuts. So I think we're definitely seeing some contraction in some of the major OTAs. They're hurting. And I think we're seeing that with some of these layoff trends.
Yeah, it's and well done for mentioning it. It's never nice to talk about the layoffs, but it's interesting, isn't it? I think generally what I'm seeing here is that the cuts this time, and there were cuts last year as well, have been in the marketing department, I think, by the looks of things, which is interesting because a lot of talk about the fact that the company's using more AI to automate tasks like content creation. Again, I'm not on the inside of this. I don't have a link to Expedia, but this is just what we're reading. So it's like replacing human-driven content more increasingly with AI tools. So worrying. And I think any business that's got a big historic workforce we're going to see this trend probably continue, not just in our industry, right? It's across sectors, the impact of AI for content creation. And potentially, it's even a sign that the arrival of AI is challenging the OTA model to the point where it's making people slightly nervous about what the next 12 months will look like. I can't say much more about it, but again, I don't think it necessarily represents for us a sign that the industry is not moving in the right direction or is not healthy, but maybe these businesses are slightly too cost heavy for where things are moving. I would suspect. So very interesting. We'll watch that one really closely. Yeah,
totally agree. Should we, as we're talking about all the big guys, should we talk about Airbnb, Leo?
Let's do it. I love it. We don't normally just do the big guys, but I'm leaning into it today.
Gosh, this is like every single big name all in one episode. I don't know how we've done it.
We've not even said hyperlocal yet. There you go. Until I just said it. All right. Okay. There you go. Doesn't count. Sarah, give us the article. What have you got?
Yeah, sure. So Airbnb released a quality report, and that includes a whole bunch of platform improvements, which we should definitely keep an eye on. So there's some kind of main pillars to this. One was enhancing the guest and host experience. So Airbnb has introduced 535 new features. This includes things like the guest favorites collection that kind of highlights the top ranking listings. And these properties have been booked for over 250 million nights, and they have an average of a 4.9 star rating. So this is tracking really, really well with that same sort of quality focus that we saw earlier in the year, which led Airbnb to remove over 400,000 what they consider low quality listings. And that was mostly related to customer service complaints. They have seen a 15% drop in customer service related issues as it speaks to quality since they've removed some of these listings. So I think it's the right move for them. It's increasing the brand, and ultimately it's going to be good for the industry as a whole. They're continuing to focus on hosts, the superhost community in particular. They're really making a concerted effort to grow that. It grew by 15% last year. And they are also adding new things like ID verification, which is basically leading them to directly block or redirect what they consider to be risky bookings. And that amounted to over 1.4 million potential risky bookings last year. So really, really interesting one on that one. And then there definitely are some market moves. It seems like the shareholders are loving some of the changes that they're making. The co-host network was also launched. They've done, of course, the global ban on indoor security cameras, which we already knew about. But all of these kind of recent announcements, we've seen Airbnb share price jump 13% last month. And their Q1 revenue projection is looking really strong. So between 2.23 and 2.27 billion. So overall, they are making some big strides, and the shareholders seem to like it.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I'll start by saying 12 years ago, with a full head of hair and lots of enthusiasm. Yeah, that's probably right. 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I was going door to door for One Fine Stay trying to sign up homeowners. And people would ask me, what's this thing called Airbnb? Should I use Airbnb? And at that point, One Fine Stay hadn't started using Airbnb as a channel, could you believe? They were just trying to get their own direct distribution through their website and then use things like maybe Trivago and Expedia. You know, there was bits and bobs of, but it was mainly like done through partnerships with corporate travel providers. It wasn't necessarily fully embracing the OTA model. And what I would say to people, completely shamelessly, just because I was trying to sign them up, I was just selling to them that, like, you know, there was no curation on Airbnb, that it was just anything could happen. So a line I would often give is like, you know, we've priced you up. We know what will work in your area, and we won't ever oversaturate Notting Hill or Marylebone, because we'll always make sure that there's enough supply. We'll do supply and demand matching. Wouldn't say that was 100% true, but there you go. We say we do supply and demand matching. And it seems that, you know, the traditional OTA model is you just put, it doesn't matter where, you're agnostic completely to where your listings are. You're agnostic to almost to the quality. You're agnostic to whether it cannibalizes the price of those per night properties because you've got too many in your area. And it feels to me, Sarah, I don't know if you agree, that there's just a bit more curation going on, right? Because if you remove 400,000 listings that aren't performing that well, it protects the per night price of the ones you have got, and it means that people start to think about Airbnb as being a provider of quality accommodation. Again, I mentioned earlier in the show, crucial when you think about Marriott and Plum Guide and other luxury more standardized offerings in the space. So it's a really interesting move in that direction. And Uvica from Rental Scale Up did a really cool article on this that I had a look at last night, which I'd recommend anyone has a read of. But it's talking about that. It's that the fact that we're looking at, is Airbnb even acting as a full OTA, or are they really acting as a kind of more of a Sykes Cottages? There's more curation, because Sykes, for example, like Sykes or Travel Chapter, they're not doing any day-to-day management, but they're very fixated on who their homeowners are, and they wouldn't let anything in that affected the brand quality. Don't know. What do you think?
I think they have to do this, Leo. 400,000 listings in the grand scheme of things. Currently, as of January, Airbnb had 7.8 million, just over that, listings globally. So getting rid of 400,000 underperforming, it's not really hurting their bottom line. And it can only help the brand image, because I would totally agree with you on the Sykes Cottage comment. I think people don't look at Airbnb, and I think that's also some of the I don't know. I go back and forth between like direct bookings versus you need the OTAs versus you can get direct bookings. I want to believe that for the little guys, you can get all these direct bookings. But I don't know that I see it. Maybe AI will change things. But I think the OTAs have such a strong brand awareness. Like when I am booking a vacation, I don't think I'm going to go book a Vacasa, or I'm going to go book a, One Fine Stay or whatever it may be. I'm going to book an Airbnb. And so in my mind, every Airbnb that I stay at, I expect a similar standard of quality, whether that's fair or not. You definitely do. And so, I mean, I've stayed at Airbnbs before where like, I don't know, there was no toilet paper, or there was just something was wrong, you know, or there was like, you go to do the washing up and there's no dishes, there's no dish liquid, or there's no pods for the, for the dishwasher, or whatever the case may be. Those kind of small things really make a huge difference. And we do expect those properties to be, I would say, sometimes even more well-stocked than a hotel. You know, you go to an Airbnb and there's like no shampoo, and you get there at 10 p.m. at night and you're thinking, oh, come on, what's happening here? So I think it's absolutely
to have, Sarah. Lucky you that you need to use shampoo. Well done. Well done.
Oh, sorry, honestly, Leo. I didn't mean that as a jab.
No, I think you're right. We're going back to this idea of curation, and the reason that you book an Airbnb, the reason that one books an Airbnb is because you know, or a booking.com is because you know there'll be there's enough flags on the map for you to have a decent amount of properties to search for. And that was one thing that we at One Fine Stay we can never compete. We never, because there was so much curation in how we took on hosts. We only took on 10% of the properties that ever wanted to work with us. Therefore, you couldn't, it's very, very hard to do quality at scale because there just isn't the inventory. And then the guest wants to go and pick their property, and then their budget will decide where they choose to go. But even within that, so again, back to what I was saying at the start, we would say, well, Airbnb is the whole market and we're just the top end of the market. And if you're on the whole market, it doesn't make you special. But really, I think that's been proven incorrect here. Well, in the long term, we've lost that battle. I'd say we lost that battle at One Fine Stay because, again, like you say, you can take off your worst performers and you've still got millions and millions of other listings, and it doesn't therefore need to cause you any problems in that respect. And as we focused on it a couple of weeks ago with a slight bit of cynicism, Airbnb talking about how the safest way to book online is to book with us and not book with a direct booking website that you found through social media because it might be scammy. So you're right, it's all moving in that direction, isn't it? They're saying, look, it's a curated list, we remove underperforming properties, it's safe, you can trust us, and you can book with us. And if we're going on to talk about if we move on to talk about something like the rise of AI agents, so you could call it like the AI tool going behind and actually making the booking on your behalf. I think that in that world, the tool is going to want to use an OTA because they know that your credit card details are safe. So it's not necessarily game over for the OTA, but it definitely changes. It changes what you need to do. And I wonder if it's a slight reaction from Airbnb, is that like they know that if people are going to use AI agents increasingly, they need to know that the consumer and the AI agent can trust that the property exists, that the quality bar is there, and maybe having slightly less properties but ensuring that quality is a better long-term strategy. Ever so slightly niching yourself, ever so slightly, and trying to build a brand reputation around that.
Did I ever tell you about my worst Airbnb experience ever, Leo? I think I did for 15 episodes.
I'm going to try and remember because I think you were in Paris. Yep. Were you in Paris? I think and I think it was like a building within a car park with no windows. Does that kind of sound right?
Yep, that was it. It was completely legal. And we went there for a business trip. It was supposed to be a 3-bedroom apartment. There were 3 adults in there. No, it was a 1-bedroom with like a futon and a sleeper sofa. And there was no windows, and it was all like, they had the worst smell of damp. It was awful. And whether you like it or not, that experience, I don't chalk that up to, oh my gosh, I had a bad experience with this particular host. We left thinking, oh my God, that Airbnb was a disaster. So whether you like it or not, Airbnb is on the hook for that. Their reputation is on the line when they have listings like that. And so I think it's a super smart move because they're the ones that get the bad rap when it's
agree. And if you're going to provide customer service support and not just say all we're doing is connecting host and guest and then it's up to you. So if you are and that slightly, I mean, maybe we need to change our thinking on what an OTA is, but it doesn't, it feels more like a curated platform, right? In this instant, you're saying it here, 15% reduction in customer service complaints. It just makes sense. It stands to reason. If you're going to offer that level of service, you're probably going to remove those problem bookings. Otherwise, you're just making unnecessary work for yourselves and you're making your whole business less profitable. What do you think? What do you make of the co-hosting program here in that respect, because if we are going with this idea that Airbnb is trying to get the industry to become more standardized, more professional because it suits its aims, the co-hosting program in that context looks completely logical, right?
I think it's a really smart move. I think there's a lot of single property owners that or maybe they have a second home and they think, oh, great, I'll just put it on Airbnb. And this is exactly what leads to the quality issues, right? Because you have somebody who isn't professional. They don't really know what they're doing. It's their first time and all they see is dollar signs or euro signs or pound signs. And they decide that they're going to put it on Airbnb. And this leads to these, quite frankly, like really, really shitty listings. Like the one I stayed at in the car park in Paris. I'll never get over it. But the co-hosting, I think, is a really smart way for them to replenish some of that supply. So, I don't know if they're doing this, but if I'm Airbnb, I'd be reaching out to some of these underperforming listings that they've removed and say, hey, we'll let you back on the site if you go through our co-hosting program and you make the improvements with a co-host. That's super smart because then they're not even really losing that inventory. They're taking inventory that used to be terrible and hurting their brand and turning that into an asset for Airbnb through the co-hosting program. So I think there's a lot of runway that they could definitely use to kind of get those supply numbers back up again if they wanted to, but maintaining the same level of quality. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I think it's perfectly in line. And I think the shareholders see that too. And for once, the results of the filings are actually coinciding with the share price. So it's nice to see. It feels like shareholders are finally starting to believe Airbnb and what they're saying.
Feels like a good result, doesn't it? I do slightly wonder if 13% increase though feels a bit inflated just with where the global economy might be going. So don't know. I'm not an economist, as you know. We need other people on the pod to really talk about that. But that's in my head is that feels slightly high. So I guess we'll find out, won't we, how that tracks through the year. I would love to be wrong on that, but I do, talk of the R word slightly in America. I don't want to use that. I don't want to jinx it. But we've all got to. I think we've got to be maybe slightly with a pinch of salt. But again, shows that Airbnb are doing the right things. Property managers, actionable insights. Obviously, here it's this professionalization probably supports property managers for now. I don't think the co-hosting program will ever replace the traditional property management model. So perhaps I'm wrong, but it feels like this trend is good for the professional actors in our space. By the way, when I say professional, I'm not saying large. I'm not saying thousands of listings. You can be professional as you want to be with one listing. Shout out to people like the Hospitable Host Group who make those books and talk about their hosting stories. You might just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 listings, but you dedicate it and you treat it as a craft, hosting guests and that sort of thing. So it favors those type of hosts, I think, significantly. So let us know, hosts around Europe, what you think about this. Have you had experiences with Airbnb where potentially a listing has been taken off the platform, or you feel that you're getting better guests and you're getting higher prices because bad listings in your area have come down? Interested to hear more. Sarah, we're well out of time, my friend, but I've got to ask you because, I always want to know. I want to live vicariously through you because you're probably doing more fun stuff than me. What are you up to this coming few days?
I am going out tonight, Leo.
Well done. Well done.
It's like one of Mauro's favorite techno people, and he's in town. And so we have a group of friends. I haven't been out in probably since December. So I'm actually really excited. It should be good. It's one of those classic Spain events where it starts at midnight and ends at 6 a.m. So
that's the thing I think I struggle with the most is that can't it just start at 7 p.m. and end at midnight? I mean, that would be so lovely, wouldn't it? And then everyone goes to bed at a reasonable hour.
You need a nap, Leo. Also, it makes perfect sense because we have dinner at especially on the weekends at 10 p.m. So you have dinner and then you go out. It's normal. Fine. Okay. Well, I'm not envious of that, but I'm excited for you. Great. Okay, cool. Well, look, as you might remember, I said I signed up to a hilly half marathon. So I'm doing that in a couple of days. I'll report back when we see each other again. I've got really lucky with the weather. We have had nothing but blue skies in this part of Europe for the last 7 days, and it's set to continue into the weekend. So when you sign up to an event in March in the UK, you really are, you're playing, you're dicing with the devil because it really can be rain and it still might be. The weather can turn quickly here, but it's looking like I'm on for a good one. So I'll report back next week. Well, we've had a shift, Leo. My debauchery has been rewarded with disgusting weather in Barcelona. It's raining and it's gray and we haven't seen the sun in days. And your good, healthy lifestyle and marathon running is rewarded with sunshine. So I say it's great.
It feels like it can't be nice in the UK and Barcelona at the same time. It's either or, isn't it? All right, gang. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe, and all the usual social places. And we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.